President Biden touting the U.S. economy during his trip overseas, even as recession fears grow and prices for gasoline, food, consumer goods remain sky high. Listen to this.
America's better positioned to lead the world than we ever have been. We have the strongest economy in the world. Our inflation rates are lower than other nations in the world.
Joining me now, former White House Council of Economic Advisors, Chair and University of Chicago economist, Tomas Philipson. Thomas, good to see you this morning. Just your reaction to what you heard from the president.
Well, I think in general, I think it's misleading because Americans don't really care what's happening abroad. We really care about what's happening here. So even if he's right, he's wrong, obviously. There's data to show that he's clearly wrong. I think everyone agrees on that looks at the data. But even if it's right, Americans understand that we would be a lot better off without his policies. And that's what's really at stake here. His policies have damaged us tremendously. And had he done nothing, we would have been a lot better off, regardless of what happens in the rest of the world.
Well, one thing I've been talking about, why, again, to your point, why keep bringing up something, and it's not one stat or using one line of argument that's been refuted. His own Federal Reserve chief said, when questioned in front of the Senate panel, said that inflation started before the Russia invasion of Ukraine. But on that note, if you look at what Biden and company have continued to do, they extended the moratorium on making student loan payments at a time when inflation was already running at 8.5% a year. So it's extended through August. The unemployment rate was already at 3.6%. This is stimulus. Running into the billions of dollars being handed to people who have six-figure jobs in part.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear now that what he's doing has dragged down the economy. We're going to have a second half of this economy that is going to be negative, regardless of what happens in Q2, because Q1 is going to drag down Q2 so much that the first half of 2022 is going to be a negative half. We might even be in a recession, which I've said on this program before, right, because Q2 might be negative, and it looks like it now because Atlanta Fed is coming out with a negative Q2 after the consumption report yesterday, which took a big dip in real consumption.
Liz Peek, jump in.
Thomas, question for you. If indeed we're already in a recession, as you point out, some indications are that we in fact are in a recession now, what should the Fed do at its next policy meeting? Are you in the camp that they should continue with very big rate increases, the 75 basis point hike, no matter what? Or do you think with some commodities rolling over that maybe inflation is not as much of a pressing issue as growth is right now?
Well, I think there's two things going on. One is just a supply and demand shift, or supply cuts, I should say, in the energy markets, which has nothing to do with inflation. Inflation, economists usually think, is an overall price increase in the economy, mostly related to that the quantity of money grows faster than the quantity of goods in some sense. But we have a lot of inflation. We also have a supply cut because the two biggest producers, U.S. and Russia, are both cutting back. Russia through the war, obviously, but U.S. through regulation. But if you look at the meeting that they had in Europe, they're talking pretty tough there. But what actually is going on is that they have loosened real rates this year, meaning they're raising nominal rates across the world, but they're not raising nominal rates to keep up with inflation. So real rates have actually gone more negative in 2022 as they're quote-unquote tightening. So what you care about when you borrow and lend is the real rate of interest, which is the nominal interest minus inflation. And that's turned more negative when they call themselves as having a tightening policy, which is misleading, I think.
Federal Reserve Chief Jay Powell is being slammed for an admission about inflation that he made earlier this week. Listen to this.
I think we now understand better how little we understand about inflation.
That's not very reassuring.
No, honestly, this was unpredicted.
I think he was joking, but not a joke.
Not a joke for Americans who see their paychecks basically carry less and less when they start to buy things. But it's a general problem with what economists call Keynesian economists, which I'm certainly not in the camp of, but pretty much the whole DC establishment is in that camp, which says that they think that government officials understand the economy and can time policy, even though no one can, not even the private sector and Wall Street, which has much better incentives to try to forecast the economy. But forecasting the economy and trying to time policy is like, trying to plan a wedding on a sunny day. You just can't do it because you can't forecast the weather. And we see this again and again. This is just Groundhog Day of Keynesian policy going wrong, where government officials don't understand what's going on and therefore mistime things.
What are you, if not Keynesian, are you a freed maniac?
Well, I don't think that the government or, a set of bureaucrats in D.C. can control 330 million people in an economy as well as they think they can. They're basically imposing price controls in credit markets and through setting interest rates. And they try to time those price controls in credit markets to basically steer the economy in the right direction. I think that it's a futile exercise.
Before we go, presidents in the past have done wacky, crazy things when they become desperate. And I always go back to LBJ, who told his Surgeon General to tell people that eggs were bad for you when egg prices surged, to warn about cholesterol. And he actually went as far as bringing William McChesney Martin down to his Texas ranch and pushing him against a wall when he wasn't following his orders on monetary policy, on tightening. And so I just wonder potentially how desperate does this administration get? Because I just feel like a policy mistake is in the making, whether it's monetary, fiscal, or both.
Well, I think we have 4 months to the election, and I think that's going to put a lot of corrective action on the fiscal policy. The monetary policy, obviously, we call this, taxation without representation in terms of inflation. We don't elect, obviously, the Fed officials, but they're imposing large taxes on us through inflation. And it's really taxation without representation, and we can't really do much on that front until we have a turnover in the staff there. They're appointing very, very, very unqualified staff. Powell, I've interacted with quite a bit when I was at the White House. He's a great guy, well-intended, very smart. It's just that no one can basically steer this economy through price controls in credit markets, in my view.
I said Thomas. Is it Thomas or Tomas?
Either way is fine. Tom goes good too.
Okay, Tom. Philipson, thank you so much. I get called everything under the sun, some intentional, some not intentional. So I always try to, I just wanted to ask, that's all. Thank you so much, Tom. Great to see you. You be well.
Good to be with you.